Read the Ten Commandments this Shabbos. Coming up. Yesterday I saw the offering again. It said a sand offering and a peace offering. Which sacrifice does a convert? Remember? It's an Isla. What sacrifice does a ger bring? I have to look it up. A convert brings a sacrifice. The Mashiach comes. All the converts have to be ready. They forget to tell them in the best. We're gullus mindset.
We're not shluchim. The Bezdin is not shluchim.
No, the Bezdin says this is what you have to do, and this now. But to say one more thing: when Mashiach comes, you have to bring a carbon. I heard that there was a rabbi that kind of instituted that everybody had to have like the money for the carbon on the side, but then interesting. But then times got hard and people started like using that money. That gets complicated, yeah. Okay. Good morning. Okay, today we're going to start on Pei Zayin Amud Beis. B'bnai Gadol Yitin Loi Miyad. We're re-examining a brisa. I mentioned in the brisa that if someone damages his son, bruises his son, he has to pay. If he's an older son. If it's a younger son, we said that he has to set aside the money, buy something that will be of value that the son will use later. If it's his daughter, then he's exempt. That's what the brisa said. Okay. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's about learning we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. And also in the memory of Zahava Golda Bas Baruch Binyamin learning. Okay, so it says like this. Pei Zayin Amud Beis. B'nai Gadol Yitlei Miyad. Said in the brisa that if he damages his older son, he has to give him the money immediately. Miyad is immediately. Okay, so Veramino, there's a contradiction. Another brisa. If someone damages someone else's children, so then it depends. Gedolim, if they're older, yitin lehem miyad, he has to give them right away. Ketanim, if they're younger, yaslam segula, he has to buy for them something that's going to be of value that they'll use later on. And the problem is, the contradiction is the next phrase, "V'banu v'naisim shalai is pater." If it's his own children, then he's going to be exempt. Right. So he's going to be exempt. So the contradiction is like this. The first brisa says that if he damages his own children, he's chayiv, unless it's his daughter. Right? But if it's other, the second brisa says if he damages his own children, he's going to be pater. You hear the contradiction? Chayiv and pater. Big contradiction. Amri, so they answered the contradiction like this. We're on Pei Zayin Amud Beis. It says like kasha, it's not a problem. Kan kishaseimchen al shulchane, kan kishain seimchen al shulchane. These two brises. The first brisa that we finished off yesterday with, that says that he's chayiv to pay if he damages his own children. That's because they were independent people and they weren't being supported by him. They had their own house. They weren't living in his house. But here he's going to be pater in the second brisa that we just learned today. That's because they're being supported by him. And so therefore he doesn't have to pay them for the damages. He's already paying them for everything. Okay. Now the Gemara says, "B'mayu kimta lakamaisa." How did you establish the brisa that we learned yesterday where we said that he is chayiv? Said, it's like a rhetorical question. We're talking about where they're not being supported by the father; they're living independently, and that's why if he damages them, he has to pay for the damage. So let's read through the whole thing. He damages his older son, he pays right away. Damages the younger son, he has to buy something that's going to be have value later on. Call it segula. And then it says, "Maseifa." The end says, "Achevel b'bitei aktana is pater." he damages his younger daughter, that he's exempt. But not only that, but if others damage her, father damages her, he doesn't have to pay. If others damage her, the Brisa continues, they have to give the money to the father. Just 1 second. We're talking about someone that's not being supported by the father. It's a young girl, but she's living independently. So 1 second. Why doesn't that income go to her? She has to buy her own food. Why is the father taking it?
She lived independently of her father. She was a girl.
Yeah.
No.
Those days. Yeah.
Found them out. Work.
Yeah.
Does this like coincide with like her betrothal money and stuff like that?
Yeah. Because he's able to sell her. That's what we're discussing. We mentioned this. Because he's able to sell her, so therefore he should also. That was a question from, was it Rabbi Bar Mama? Who asked that question? No, this is Rabbi Lesa's question from Rav. This was the question that we were learning yesterday. If someone damages his younger daughter, so do we say that since the father can sell her, so he can also take her the damage money? Or do we say that no, he's only can sell her in marriage? Father can sell her in marriage, but he's not allowed to damage her, so he doesn't have the rights to take damage money. In the end, we said that Rav agrees that he takes the sheves, the work money, because he has that income, right? Okay, so now.
So you wouldn't take the damage money?
So the damage money he takes. It could be that what this is talking about, if we're going to learn it according to Rav, we'll say that it's taking the work money, right? The sheves, the loss of work. We're on Pei Zion. Okay, so our question is, if she's independent, so why is the father taking her money when she gets damaged? She's living alone. She needs the money for food. Even if you're going to say there's a discussion in Masechta Gittin regarding if a master can tell us a non-Jewish slave, can say, I want you to do work, and I'm also not going to pay you for your food. It's a slave. So how's the slave going to survive? Well, what he's going to do is he's going to work, and then he's going to have to spend some time going around begging for food. The master's not even going to provide him with food. No. We can't really get a second job, but it's sort of like a second job. So the master's gonna, you're a slave. This guy's a slave for this and this, and then how does he eat? Well, he's got to figure it out. Now the master won't get much out of him if he doesn't have food, but nevertheless, doesn't mean he's responsible. So even if it's possible to do that, but hani mili bebed kanani, there's only one opinion that holds that, and that's by a non-Jewish slave. Darmalei could say to him, I want you to work the whole day. And in the evening, go around and beg. And you'll, go around the city. But when it comes to a Jewish slave, it says that he's supposed to be good with you. Means he's supposed to sit at your table and eat, and sit at your table and drink. If you have food, you're supposed to give him the same portion or better than what you have, right? The pillow has to be a better one. Basically, you have to treat him well. So you're not allowed to do that. So Kosh can be for sure. You can't do that to your daughter, right? You can't do that to your daughter. Should be treated at least like a Jewish slave. So how is the father allowed to take the money when the daughter doesn't even have food coming from the father? Mari answers, Kedama Rava Breder Ravu Lenetzchala Dafa Hachinam Lenetzchala Alala Dafa. We're talking about that the father is going to provide her with food. So then why do we say it's not Smuchim al Shulchan? We're talking about here that not that the father's providing her with food, but that she has enough food, and this is extra beyond what her food is. So in other words, this money that's coming in right now is she doesn't need for her food. She has her month taken care of. All the expenses are taken care of. I don't know how. She's working. She's independent. And this extra money comes in. So the father, of course, can't take it away if she needed it for food. But because she doesn't need it for food, the father can keep it. Okay. How did we establish the second brisa that we learned today? That he's exempt from paying his own children if he damages them. The Smuchim al Shulchan is talking about that they're being supported by him. So he's paying for everything. He doesn't have to pay if he damages them. Okay. So if you look at that brisa, it says like this, that if he damages other people's children, then he has to pay them. If he damages his own children, he's exempt. That's what the brisa says. And we said, why is he exempt? Because they're being supported. But we'd like for the entire brisa to be symmetrical. We're talking, what type of children are we talking about? People that are being supported by their parents. Okay, so let's take a look. So Gedolim, if it was other people's children, Eaten lemiyad, he has to pay them right away. Ketanim yaslem segula, he has to buy this thing that's going to have value later on. Amai,
Make safe investments.
Safe investments, right? Amai. Why does he give them? Why does he give it to them? Why does he give it to them? He should give it to the father. They're being supported by the father. Follow? I get it, the second part of the bride, so that he doesn't have to pay them because they're being supported by him. But when it's other people's children, why is he giving them the money? He should give it to the father the money.
I don't know.
Okay. So Amri, they answered like this. See, this is a very interesting, interesting Gemara. Yeah, kids with an allowance, that's right. Does that become a real responsibility? Can the kids take the parents to court? So you told me that you're going to give me an allowance.
It happens before people.
Oh yeah.
They take the parents to university.
Oh.
That's the
Uh-huh.
way it is.
Well,
Well, they're
What is
over,
surprised me? This crazy world.
That's if they're over 18.
yeah, that could be over 18. The under 18, I mean,
I've
it
heard
doesn't
the
feel like
concept.
there's much responsibility on the parents
There's no
to do it.
responsibility at all.
So, yeah, but you told me that if I do my chores, I'm going to get 10 cents.
Oh, that's lying already.
Okay, but doesn't mean you can take them to court. Say, okay, I'm sorry, I lied.
They have a deal.
But
It's a commercial
was there a Kenyan?
It seems we're in this situation because the only choices we have are it belongs to the child, it belongs to the father. Is there anything in the middle where the father becomes sort of an apotropos for the child's?
Right.
Kind of like
Segula.
a husband is, guess some of the right to use his wife's
Right.
stuff, but he has to return the money at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to have a Gemara like that coming up on the next page where there's rights to use and not the Kenyan Peiros, Kenyan Aguf with father and son. But that's going to be a special arrangement. Yeah.
I think the
segula is similar to that. He's going to buy something that's going to be an investment that the child is going to have later on.
Uh-huh.
At the end of the day, it's all about the child. It's about the father having the responsibility of paying for the child's safety and upbringing. So anytime there's money going, it's really, I mean, even if you give it to the father, it's really going for the children.
Right.
He's paying for the children.
Yeah, that's an ideal world, though. It could very well be that. What do you mean? I'm taking it for the children, and really he's using it for, gambling or something. There could be a lot of examples where he's not. If it's not directed that the money needs to go to the child, the money needs to go to the parent. It has to be clear, or else the father says, "What do you mean? My whole life is for my children," and it's not 100% like that.
In the secondary court, sometimes they put the money aside, and then when the child becomes 18, he has access to the funds.
Uh-huh.
Like sometimes.
Bilvavi, Bilvavi Mishkanev, the Itamar Schwartz, that is. There's this very interesting speaker. Like, I don't know what he's called, Mashpia, it's some sort of, he writes these books called Bilvavi. Anyway, I heard him talking once. So he was talking about the parents, the dedication for the children. Anyway, so it was to the ladies. One of the ladies says, "What do you mean? I would sacrifice my life for my children." So he said, "Yeah, you would sacrifice your life for Hashem also, but it doesn't mean that every day all you're doing is just for Hashem. It's just at the test. That's right. There's still, you still have a personal life, even though the parent says, "What do you mean I give my life from the child?" It doesn't mean that every cent is going towards the child. They're doing personal things also.
Sometimes the interest, the conflict.
Yeah. Okay, so now it says, so it goes like this. The money should have gone to the father, because when you're paying for other people, you're paying other people damages that you did for, not that you, but someone did to other people's children. Why are they giving it to the children? They should be paying the father. The children are living in the father's house. So it says, when does the father expect money? That's, he doesn't want to have to lay it out to pay. It doesn't mean he needs to take every bit of income. So you get it, when it's his own children, we say that he doesn't want to pay because he does not laying out money. But money that's coming in, he's a parent of other people's, he's not a parent of other people's children. He's a parent of his own children, and someone else had caused damage to them. So money that's coming in from that other fellow, that not necessarily does he need to take that. That money can go to them, as long as he's not losing the money. When it's his own children that he damaged, so then he doesn't pay it.
He would want that money to go to his kids anyway.
Probably. That's the Gemara's assumption. One second. What about a lost object, a found object? The father keeps if the children find a treasure, and the children are being supported by the father keeps it. This is coming from the outside, and it's income, it's not loss. The father keeps it. Amri, so they explain like this. If it's income that comes from the outside and the children had no suffering because of it, so then he expects to keep it. But when it's a bruise that the children suffered, and it's coming from the outside, like up at that, he's fine with them keeping, because they actually suffered for it, and he's not losing. Kumar says, 1 second, but there is a case where there is suffering. It's coming from the outside, and he keeps it. Diktani, because it was taught in the Brisa. What about his daughter? When someone damages his daughter, the money goes to the father. 1 second. It matches up with all those criteria. It's coming from the outside. It's she suffered. Why is it going to the father? It should go to her. Amri Hassam the Gavra Kapdanahu. The Gemara says like this. You have to take a look. You see what's going on over here, what type of person we're dealing with? We're dealing with the type of guy that's already kicked the kids out of the house before their bar mitzvah. And they're not even being supported by him. So such a, maybe. So I feel such a person, he wants everything. He wants even the money that's coming from the outside. Now we're talking about, of course, the hadafa, the extra money after she's already able to survive. We said that she already has her basic income. He wants the surplus. Let me just finish the sentence. The lav gabra kaptana, who we're not dealing with a person that's so stingy, so but the smuchan al shulchana, he's supporting them. So kikapid, when does he really care? That's only something that he is going to be missing. That means if he would have to lay it out, that is something that he doesn't want to do. But but over here, he doesn't have to give for, he doesn't have to lose. But there, he doesn't have to take what's coming from the outside. He would allow his kids to get it. And then in the second brisa, if they damage his daughter, it would go to his daughter as well. He doesn't have to take it. It's only in the first brisa where he's taking what's going to his daughter, because over there, he's the type of guy that he already kicked the children out of the house. And he's very stingy. And he wants everything. Okay. You have a question?
The surplus reminds me about the seller of the wife. I think you mentioned that the husband, she works like a seller a day, and then any surplus that she did, she could keep it.
Right.
Right.
Something like that, exactly. Yeah. That's back in Ksubas.
It's a kafta. Kaftana.
Kaptana is, how do they translate it over there? It's someone that's very particular.
He uses a word I've never heard before. Captious. Captious.
You got to look that up. There's
This is a
Dr.
classic
Stein.
exploiter, right?
Yeah.
He owns the kids. Let's say these quasi-slaves kids. He puts them out to the market. They have, and whatever they get, he gets the surplus. They have to get enough to survive. It's classic Marxist economics, because Marx learned with the Talmud Chacham. He borrowed these concepts word for word,
Right.
and made a whole economy.
Marx's brother was a rabbi. You know that? I don't know that. His brother was a rabbi. And the strange thing is that he was the lawyer for his brother. He was a lawyer, right?
Both grew up from.
Yeah, I think so.
Marx's parents converted.
No, his
They converted so he could go to university and become a nice.
but his brother was a rabbi.
What happened?
I don't know.
Destroyed the world.
No, but he has this colleague called Hess, right? Hess wrote from Rome to Jerusalem. And he broke with Hess and Hess taught him all this. Somebody taught him who knew all this. He just wrote it he left out God, and he changed the words a little bit. The vocabulary is right at him.
Wow. Okay. So now the Gemara goes back to discuss what is that investment that we make for if someone damages his children, young children, or other people's children, if he has to pay for that, other people's children and his own children, depending on what the situation is. So what is that investment? So Rav Chisda Amar Sefer Torah. Rav Chisda says he purchases a Sefer Torah. He commissions a Sefer Torah. Rabbi Rav Huna Amar Dikla Dachal Minei Tamri. He buys a tree where they can eat the fruits, a date tree. Okay. This is going back. Rav said that if someone damages his young daughter, does he have to pay her or not? No, not his own young daughter. If someone else damages a daughter, who does he pay that money to? Does he pay the money to the father, to the girl? So Rav said that he pays it to the girl. Now the Gemara says, so too Reish Lakish says that the money goes to the girl, not to the father. The only thing that the father gets is the fact that he can sell her in marriage. Rabbi Yochanan says, afilu p'tzia. Not only any damages go to the girl, but even if it's just a bruise. The Gemara says, p'tzia sal kedaitach. Would that enter your mind? Afilu Rabbi Lezer lekami bailei lachabal adachas mikaspa. Rabbi Elazar's whole question to Rav was that since the father is able to sell her in marriage, now that she's bruised, the sale price goes down. So that money should really go to the father, because the father has the rights to that marriage money. But if there's no loss because it was just pain or something, it's like just a pain, or not a real loss. So then whoever thought that the money should go to the father? Father has no rights to that. The Gemara answers, if it doesn't make a loss of her sale price in marriage, That was never his question. Talking about that he bruised her on her face, and now her value went down. Even though it's not a damage, but it could be a value in a marriage price. It could be a difference in when it comes to work. When it comes to work, we won't say that that's nezek, because she still is capable of doing every type of work, right? She has her hands and feet and whatever work that she needs to do, picking rice, getting the water, whatever thing is possible. But when it comes to marriage, then maybe the price would be different.
So we learned from here that a minor or child can own things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why does the father get to keep the money if it's like the pain? Like she was the one that got hit in the face.
We're saying the father doesn't keep the money.
Okay.
We're asking, why would you even think that the father should keep the money? And our answer is because it's a decrease in the sale price.
She's
So
scarred
if
for
he
life.
does it,
Because it's a decrease in the sale price, I could have thought that the father should get the money. Says
So it
that
is
she
through pain.
doesn't. Says that he doesn't get the money. She gets the money.
I'm still thinking about this. Could a child like get a job or something and make money for himself, or does that go to his parents?
So it depends. If he's being supported by his parents, then the money goes to the parents. If he's being independent, then the money would go.
I mean, he's being supported by his parents, but he's also working.
So the extra money goes to the parents. Yeah.
That's how it is.
Sounds like
Well, if it's a girl,
Put the kids out. Bring back the money for the.
I tell my kids always with the kid.
family.
There's different kinds of damages.
I
One is
wasn't talking about
marriage,
damages,
one
I was
is
talking about,
support.
But if the parents are really poor, let's say the kids grow up and they're competent, but they're still
Right.
young, and the parents are injured or something,
Right.
there's no other income, and they give all the money to the parents because they live with them.
right? Okay, we're holding now. Hachevel be'avid kanani shel acherim, if someone damages a slave.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting discussion, this Gemara, about slaves testifying, and it mixes in converts testifying. Interesting Gemara here. The rule is that if someone damages someone else's Evet Kanani, so there's a machlekes to Tanna Kamma and Rabbi Yehuda. Tanna Kamma says you have to pay chayiv, and Rabbi Yehuda says that you don't have to pay embarrassment. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda says slaves don't have embarrassment. Maybe because that's the lowest level. That's what someone mentioned yesterday. Because you can't get worse than that. But that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. So my time. The Gemara now asks, my time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason? What's the background to Rabbi Yehuda saying that the slaves don't get embarrassment? So what's the source of paying for embarrassment? So we have that when the two men are fighting and the woman steps in to protect their husband, and she grabs the man and she at his private place and it causes embarrassment. Pasuk says, a man and his brother are fighting, and we say, so you see, that whole discussion is only someone that has achva, that has brotherhood. But the slave doesn't have that brotherhood. Now, what exactly does that mean? Doesn't have a brotherhood. So Rashi says he doesn't get married into the congregation, and then on the side, Rashi says that he's allowed to marry his sister or his brothers, maybe even more than that.
There's a note down here. Not nice.
Now, when he converts, he's not allowed. Before he converts, there's no relationship. A slave doesn't have like. No, there's an Evet Kanani. An Evet Kanani. When he converts, so then we have the rabbinic law that, what do you mean? So interesting. Usually when someone converts, we say that he can't marry, Midrabban, he can't marry his close relatives because it says you came from Kedusha Chamura to Kedusha Kala. It used to be more strict, and now when you become Jewish, you become less strict. So that was a rabbinic law. But over here, we're talking about he's still a slave.
Why is
So-
like a half slave?
No, he is a slave. He's a non-Jewish slave. He's allowed to marry his sister.
Is it because the Canaanite slaves, like they're slaves forever? So
Yeah,
it
the
would
slaves
be-
forever. There's no
So-
family thing. It's just the individuals that are owned by the master.
So if he marries Israel, it would be intermarriage. It's not allowed.
Right.
Maybe that's why he's never going to be part of the brotherhood.
Well, that's Rashi's pshat, because he can't marry an Israelite girl. Then there's a second pshat over here that he's allowed to marry a sister. That's what it means. There's no brotherhood. No brotherhood means that there's no relatives. Then there's another pshat. Taisa says that his children aren't considered brothers. Yeah. Okay, same thing.
Something here about expositions to the Gemara, but I don't really understand.
What do you mean exposition?
Somebody.
Yeah, okay. We said about this. Amar Kra. Okay, so we had the pasuk. The Rabbanan say that you do have to. The Rabbanan say that you do have to pay for embarrassment. How do they get that there's embarrassment by a slave? It seems like it's only someone that has achva, that has brotherhood. For Rabbanan, what do the Rabbanan say? They say achav hu b'mitzvahs. He does have brotherhood because he has to do mitzvahs. A non-Jewish slave has to keep the mitzvahs. What mitzvahs? Any mitzvah that a woman has to keep.
Right.
Basically, according to Rabbi Yehuda, whenever the pasuk says achiv, it's excluding the non-Jewish slave. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, let's say someone testifies that a slave killed. Okay, so then it turns out that those those witnesses were really conspiring witnesses. They're Eidim Zaymim. So that we do to them what they wanted to do to their brother. 1 second, he's not a brother; he's a slave.
To not testify.
So according to him, they won't become Zaymim. And we have a rule that there is Zaymim, and we know that from other places. Amar Rava, Amar Rav Sheshes, Amar Kra, Bi'ate Rami Kebecha Mikal Makim. Yeah, but we have to get rid of the evil from our midst.
Yeah.
So what would happen is like this: if the slave is not considered a brother, then the witnesses that testify about him will never be able to be conspiring witnesses. And we have a rule that witnesses that can't become conspiring witnesses aren't even witnesses to start. It's Eidos that's not able to become Zayman, so we will never even get rid of the slave that murdered. And won't be able to get rid of the conspiring witnesses. The whole thing nothing will happen over it. Okay, so that's going to be like an exception to the Yachiv rule.
So you need to go to witnesses, that's all.
Right.
The slave can't be a witness.
No,
So the slave could kill somebody and nothing happens.
so obviously not. So it must be that Rabbi Yehuda, even though he says brother, even though the pasuk says brother, but somehow Rabbi Yehuda is still going to have to accept that when it comes to a slave killing, that the slave is going to get killed, and the witnesses are going to get killed as well if they're conspiring witnesses.
What about a non-Jew? A non-Jew killed, he doesn't get killed by Biston?
A non-Jew kills. So we would have the same rules of 2 witnesses.
It's part of the 7 Noahide laws.
Yeah, but let's say witnesses. No, what would happen over there? Yeah, maybe the testimony about them doesn't need to be Eidashat Yachal Azima. It definitely can't be Zaymimin. The witnesses won't be Zaymimin. Yeah, the question is, what about the first testimony? What about the original? If it can't become Zaymimin, why is it considered testimony? Or maybe the rules of the Sheva Mitzvahs work different. No. So I'm Rav Sheh, I'm sorry.
If there's a deserving member, they kill him. Are they responsible to pay the damage of killing the
Oh, if they kill the Eved and then they turn to be Eidim Simon, so you don't kill them now because Kasher Zaman v'lei Kasher Asa. It's too late, right? If it was already killed. Yeah. Could be that they have to pay for the damage, for the losses. That could be.
Isn't it left in the hands of Hashem? In that case, if they killed the
I think so.
wrongfully killed.
Right. Amar Rav Sheshes Amar Kra. Okay, so we said according to this, L'Rabbanan Eved Yekashel Malchus. If the Rabbanan hold that when it says Achiv, it's referring to anyone that has to keep mitzvahs. So then an Eved also has to keep mitzvahs. So when it says that when you will appoint a king, it says over there the word Achiv. Forget the pasuk, but it says Achiv. So if it also includes a slave, so Mikerav Achecha Tasam Melech, that's what it says, from amongst your brothers. So if it includes a slave, so then a slave could become a king. So it says Amri Tamech Tikshlach Ger L'Divrei Hakol. But what about a convert? We know that a convert's not supposed to become a king. Right? That was that story with Agrippas. And a convert for sure has to keep mitzvahs. It can't be just from amongst your brothers. Of course, a convert is amongst your brothers, and of course, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, the slave is also amongst your brothers. But it's not mikerav achecha. It's not from the best of your brothers, from the chosen of your brothers. But according to this, if a slave is considered achiv, according to the Rabbanon, so you should be able to testify that tzivin eid sheker on a ba'achiv. It was a false witness that testified on his brother. And just look at this. The slave is considered a brother, according to the Rabbanan, because he has to keep mitzvahs. So we could use a slave as a witness. Amarula, edus leimatzis amrit. You can't say that a slave is good as a witness because asi edus b'kal v'chemer meisha, because we can learn a kal v'chemer from a woman. Ma isha shiriya lava b'kal psuledus. If a woman that's able to get married into the congregation, but she's nevertheless disqualified from testimony, Eved, so for sure a slave that is not part of the congregation for sure can't be. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Maybe the reason why a woman can't be a witness is because she doesn't have a bris. How do you know what the factor is that's disqualifying, right? How do you know which? But we have certain factors that variables that the woman would have, then maybe that's the reason why she's disqualified, because she doesn't have a bris, but the slave does have a bris. So the Gemara says, but the minor, he has a bris and he's puzzled. So obviously it's not the bris that makes the woman disqualified from being a witness. The Gemara says, well, maybe the child is different. The child doesn't have an obligation to keep mitzvahs, but the slave does have mitzvahs. So maybe the slave really should, you see, what now we're holding, we would say the reason why the woman doesn't have to keep mitzvahs is because, the reason why the woman is the invalid witness is because she doesn't have a bris. The reason why a child is an invalid witness because he doesn't have to keep mitzvahs. But the slave that has a bris and has mitzvahs would be a good witness. The Gemara says, sorry?
Do slaves have a bris?
Slaves have a bris. And they also have mitzvahs. 1 second. The woman, it's not the fact that they don't have mitzvahs that makes them disqualified by a child, because a woman is also disqualified and she does have mitzvahs. The common denominator, the common factor between a woman and a child is they don't have all the mitzvahs and they can't testify. A slave also doesn't have all the mitzvahs.
One thing they could even add is when you take a census, I think it only counts like the adult males.
Yeah.
Maybe they could apply that.
That they weren't in the census.
Yeah.
But we would like to get that some sort of logic that should explain why this variable is the one that's causing that they should not be a good witness, not be a qualified witness.
Just trying to link it to.
It's more than just linking it. It's also there should be a logic as well. And the logic over here is that, well, they're considered regular. Maybe that's what you want to say, because of the census. But the census wouldn't really affect anything of their life. Okay, so we say we'll bring the slave that's also disqualified from testimony. 1 second. The common factor, those two that were in this, which was the woman and the child, both of those are not a man, the woman or a child, but the slave is a man. And maybe that's the reason why you should be qualified to be a witness. Okay, so we'll learn from a thief. 1 second, yeah, that's not a good comparison. The thief is a thief. The slave is not a thief. He didn't do anything wrong. He's just a slave. What we're going to do is we're going to say that if we have a thief plus a child, or a thief plus a woman, the common factor in that is that even though it's a man, right? But the fact is that they're exempt, they're disqualified from being a witness. So too, the slave would be disqualified from being a witness. All we have to do is throw the thief into the common denominator, and then we can't question, say, yeah, but what about the fact that he's a man? Slave is a man, which is different, therefore he should be. Because I have the thief that's a man that's also disqualified.
It's really down to trust. We don't trust the thief. That's why we don't.
Well, yeah, but the thief alone is because of trust. But if we mix the thief together with the woman who we trust also, or the child that we trust also, but nevertheless they're disqualified, then we'll be able to disqualify also the slave. Eved Kanani.
Maybe it is because of trust.
It doesn't seem like that, because
Maybe
it says mice of Garmalite.
We don't trust the child.
That could be a time of the Kra. That could be more than that. But here we're just looking at the dry halacha. Okay.
The reason for this favor is that testimony could be compromised, or there's other reasons.
Yeah, but it's not going into that. It's not discussed. That could be like an explanation behind the scenes, but it's not. It doesn't even bother with that. You can't trust him because of his lifestyle. It doesn't. It's not good. Okay.
Coincides with the robber.
Yeah, but it's not really doing that. It's not. It's just the only thing that we're bringing the robber in is to tell me that the robber is a man, and nevertheless he's invalid. So to the slave, just because he's a man doesn't mean he's automatically qualified. Okay.
No other witness.
It's nothing we can do, unless it would be a woman that her husband passed away. Then we can trust other witnesses. But in a regular case of someone killed or something like that, we won't trust them. Yeah, we won't carry out the verdict. Okay. This pasuk says like this, that fathers should not die because of their sons, and sons should not die because of the fathers. However, the Gemara explains this pasuk totally different than what the literal meaning is. The Gemara says that means that the Gemara says that what it means is that children should not die because of testimony of the father. It means close relatives.
Oh, so
it's not because of the sin of the father, the way you would read the verse. The children should not die because of the sin of the father. That's how you would read it literally. This is a real drasha pasuk. That like totally different than the literal meaning. But anyway, over here we're saying, according to Rav Mar Breder Ravina, he's saying that you can't. It's not children or fathers. You can't use testimony on someone she'ein lem chayes banim that doesn't have a relation to his sons. Because if it would just mean that relatives can testify, that it was talking about that that father shouldn't die because of the son's testimony. It should not because of their sons. If it was just the relatives, banim just means sons, not their sons. So it should have said b'neihem. My banim. What's it telling me when it says father shouldn't die because of the sons? Should not trust witnesses that don't have relations to their sons, or relation as sons. Maybe that means not related to their fathers. Maybe
You're saying it's a conflict of interest. Basically. There's a conflict of interest. Somebody doesn't have a relationship with the kids, obviously
No.
having a bad relationship. So therefore,
No. It's not. I am saying relationship, but what I really mean is that they're not actually considered related to the children. In other words, they can marry the daughter. They can marry. That's the chayas. That there's no yichus. That's what it means. No yichus. I'm using an English word that's confusing.
The notice says that this verse is to exclude a slave.
Which just means to exclude the slave, because the slave doesn't have relation to as a son or to a son.
And then it mentions how the Jews have Ben and the father's name.
Right.
But the slave doesn't
Right,
have it.
exactly. Elamayat, if that's the case, banim la yumsu al avos, when it says that sons should not die because of the fathers, hachinami la yumsu al pi banim she'ein lehem chayas avos, then we should say the same thing. That we should say that they shouldn't, children that don't have relations to the parents, that don't have a yichus to the parents, should not be trusted. Elager hachinami, the pasaledas, according to this, a convert who's not related to his parents should be invalid to testify. And we know that that's not true. Amri, so they said, Hachiashta. Yeah, when it comes to a convert, I'm going to have to rush through this Gemara. We have two parts to the pasuk. We have La Yumsu Avis al Banim and Banim La Yumsu al Avis. We got that we're dealing with a slave when we said, instead of saying al B'neihem, it says Banim. Now we're looking at the convert and we're thinking that it says banim la yumsu al avos, that someone that doesn't have chayas avos, is not related to his parents, should also be invalid. The Gemara now says ger nehidein lechayas l'mayla, although he's not related upwards, that means to his parents, but l'mata yesh lechayas, but his sons are related to him. He has children, so lafuke eved dein lechayas le'lamayla v'le'lamata, but a slave isn't related to his parents, and his children are related to him. Because if we would say that a ger is also pasaleidus, right? Then we should say that children should not, the father should not die because of the that father should not die because of their sons. Change the word from banim to b'neihem. As we said, that's teaching me relatives. That relatives are invalid. And then it would also say, that would teach me two things. First of all, that children cannot, that parents cannot testify about children, which means relatives. And the second thing it would teach me is that would teach me that children that don't have relations to their fathers, which means that the converts should be puzzled. And if a convert is puzzled for this, then a slave for sure is puzzled. In addition, for sure the convert, if the convert that has relations to his children are related to him, is puzzled. So for sure the slave. But because the pasuk says that parents, it says that which is not b'neihem, which means that it's just talking about a slave. It's only telling me that the slave is puzzled, that isn't related upwards or downwards. But a convert would be yes, kosher. Okay. Why doesn't it say that children should not die because of their fathers? Why does it say because of fathers? Which sounds like a convert should be puzzled. Why does it say it like that? That's what led me into this Gemara, because it doesn't say their fathers, it just says fathers, which would tell me to translate it that they don't have they don't have yichus to their fathers. I did the kasav liyam savas al banim kasav nami banim liyam savas alavis. Says, well, we can only learn one of them because the other one was just said to match the other case, to make it symmetrical. Okay, we'll leave it over here.
Two taichis. You know, sometimes a kid doesn't come out exactly like you want, gives a person father terrible aggravation, you know, ajna, etc., etc. You know, he can't always blame himself and feel guilty. He gets a point.